Good morning, everyone. So I started recording. So as in the yesterday's session, I covered SDLC, right? I covered SDLC and different types of testing life cycle, right? Wherein I explained what is unit testing or white box testing, what is integration testing, what is functional testing, and what is performance testing. And I also explained performance testing at a high level. So how do we do performance testing at a high level, right? So now let's discuss in detail like what is performance testing. In what are the goals of performance testing, and in what cases we will be doing performance testing. So in what all cases we do performance testing, in what all scenarios we have to do performance testing for an application. All right. So performance testing, as you can see, I'm presenting the screen. So performance testing is a non-functional testing to determine an application's speed, stability, scalability, and reliability, right? So very important interview question. So what is performance testing, right? So, you know, these are all basics, right? So non-performance testing is a non-functional testing to determine an application speed. When I say speed, it is response time, how good are the response times of the application, right? So when you're testing a web application, like, how fast a page is loading, right? Or if you are testing a mobile application, how fast the app is loading, right? Or when you navigate from one app to another app, how fast is it loading, right? So, and stability, how stable is the application and how scalable is the application. So when I say stability, so the application should be stable under expected and more than expected load, right? So stability determines like how far the application is stable under if there is more than expected load on the application, right? And how scalable is the application? How scalable means like how many, if there are more than expected users, like how many users does it support, right? And reliability refers to how reliable is the application once it goes to production, right? Is it clear, guys? Right. So anyways, these all are explained in the next slide in detail, right? So these are the four major factors for doing performance testing. The first one is speed, I explained, right? So speed is to determine, to check if an application responds quick enough for intended users, right? So response time should be less. Yesterday I explained what is response time. Okay? Response time is nothing but like how much, if you are in case of a web application, like how much time the page is loading, right? Or if it is a mobile application, like if you are using an app, right? Any mobile app, like how fast the app is loading or how fast we are able to go to the next page and so on, right? So stability refers to how stable the application is under expected and unexpected user loads, right? So application performance should not degrade even after using a very long time, right? And then scalability. Scalability refers to can the can the application handle the expected user load, and how does it behave beyond its capacity, right? So that is scalability, right? So scalability shows like application's ability to handle increasing user load without performance degradation. Okay. And reliability is like how reliable is the application, right? And will users have positive experience on go live? Go live means once the application goes into production, will the users have positive experience? Will the users of that application have positive experience or not? Right? So this is reliability, and how reliable is the application? Right? Guys, any queries over here?
No.
Okay. So, and we do consider some metrics to measure the performance of an application, right? So uh, this can be categorized into two types: client side metrics and server side metrics, right? So the first client side metric is response time, right? So response time I explained yesterday, right? So let me open that. right? Okay, I think I did not note it here, but yeah, here it is. So response time is time taken to load a web page, right? So I explained over here, if it is a web application, like, the time taken to load a web page is called response time, or if it is a mobile application, the time taken to load an app or, particular page on an app, right? So that is called as response time, right? So that is the first and foremost important metric for from the client side. The next one is hits per second. I'll explain in what is hits per second and throughput in the coming sessions. I just want to give you like introduce these terms like hits per second and throughput and disk IOPS, right? And the server side, coming to server side metrics, we measure like to measure the performance of an application, we monitor percent processor time in CPU, right? Server side metrics, when I say server side metrics, on the server side, like on web server, application server, database server, these are the metrics that we monitor. Percent processor time under CPU, available bytes under memory, and percent disk time under disk, physical disk, and bytes total per second under network utilization. Okay, right? So these are the server side metrics and these are client side metrics. We will revisit these terms again, going forward. Okay, I just want to introduce these terms, like, because when we are doing performance testing, so these are the reasons that drive performance testing, and these are the metrics that we monitor. These are the important metrics, not just these metrics. We monitor a lot more, but like I just want to list out the important metrics that we monitor. All right. So we will revisit these terms, okay? And under system, we have something called processor queue length. I'll explain what is this processor queue length, what is bytes total per second, percent disk time, and why are these important in the next sessions, okay? For now, like you have to understand what is the difference between client side metrics and server side metrics, right? Shall you move ahead or any queries? Yes, any queries here before we move to the next slide? Okay. Anyways, we will revisit these terms like client side metrics and server side metrics. Right. Now, what are the goals of performance testing? Right. What are the goals of performance testing? Or why do we do performance testing for a already existing application and for a newly built application? Another important interview FAQ. Right. Why do we do performance testing? Right. Or what are the factors that drive performance testing, right? So first I will explain for an already existing system, right? Which is already means already existing system means which is already in production, right? Is it clear? Like, when I say what is already existing system, see, when I say already existing system means which is already in production. Take some example like, Redbus is, IRCDC application or Redbus. These are all, in production for from many years, right? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Right? So, why do we do performance testing for an already existing application? The first and foremost reason is when you are implementing a new module or new functionality. Whenever you are, implementing a new feature, some say for example, some new feature is introduced in a application, right? So let me give some examples, okay? So I will take IRCTC. Okay, IRCTC, like is there in production for many years, right? So we are using, I am using from 15 years, more than 15 years, right? So last year they introduced some new feature in IRCTC, right? This user ID looks a bit strange, but that is my employee ID in my first company. Sorry, I have to enter the captcha. Okay, so let's assume that you are searching for trains from Hyderabad to some Bangalore, right? So we know that IRCTC application is existing from many years, right? But does it mean that we don't need to do performance testing, right? Performance is good, right? The application performance is good. Previously it used to be horrible, like 10 years back, like it used to be a horrible, but but the performance of this IRCTC improved a lot over years. And from 5 years I did not see any sort of performance issues, right? So so this is an already existing application for many years, right? And let's understand, when do we need to do performance testing for an already existing application, right? So 2 or 3 years back, like previously, when you search for a train, and you click on this check availability and fare, right? So if you see, for example, today, this for this particular train, right? So it's in waiting list, right? As you can see here, GNWL means general waiting list, right? So, and the waiting list number is 31, right? So when you book a ticket here previously, we don't know whether the ticket gets confirmed or not, right? But recently IRCTC introduced this feature called CNF probability. Okay. So this CNF for confirmation probability, forecast confirmation probability, right? So whenever you got it right, so this tells you, like, what is the probability of ticket confirmation, right? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Actually, I think some. Oh, hold on. So is it showing somewhere? What is the pro? It will show in terms of percentage actually. I think there is a pop-up blocker. Hold right? So whenever some such new feature is introduced, right? So even though application is existing from many years, like they have to do performance testing, because we don't know, after introducing this new feature, we don't know what, how that new feature impacted the application, right? So this is the, like this is one first and foremost scenario, like where we have to do performance testing for a. You can, guys, you can give these examples, okay? You can give these examples as such, right? So when you're, if you're enter, you are asked, like, what is the, why do we do performance testing for an already existing application? So you can give this these examples, right? Whatever I explained, right? And we will take one more example, sir, right? So everyone may be using Redbus, right? Of course, maybe now you are not, you may not be using from this 3 quarters, like, but like previously we used to use Redbus frequently, right? So Redbus introduced some new feature, like I think last year or before last year. So Redbus introduced some new feature. So can someone, does anyone have an idea about that?
Rescheduling ticket.
Yeah, say it loud, Pavan or Girish.
Rescheduling the ticket.
Right. So this new feature is introduced in Redbus like around 1 or 2 years back, right? So once we book it previously, before this feature is introduced, right? So if you book a ticket and if you want to postpone your journey, right, then you have to cancel the existing ticket and you have to book a new ticket, right? Yes. Before this feature is introduced, like, if you book a ticket and if you want to postpone the journey, so you have to cancel the existing ticket and you have to book a new ticket, right?
Yes, yes.
Right. But after this new feature is introduced, like this reschedule feature is introduced, what, like you can, no need to book the, I mean, no need to cancel the existing ticket, but you can, right? So you can reschedule the ticket, right?
Yes. Yes,
Right.
sir.
So when, so a new feature is introduced here, right? A new feature is introduced in the application. So again, like, they will go for performance testing of this application. They will do performance testing of this application, right? So is it clear, like, what do you mean by implementing a new module or new functionality?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Can you give some new feature in Facebook which is introduced like around like 1 or 2 years back, right? Of course, there are many features. Yeah, Facebook, like it
Facebook
it
rooms.
changed the complete UI, right? Recently,
Yes, yes.
right? So again, that they changed this to black background, right?
Yeah, dark mode.
Dark mode, yeah.
Yes.
To dark mode, right? So whenever such new feature is introduced again, like they have to do performance testing, right? Whenever such new features are introduced, correct?
Yes.
Right? So I gave some 3 examples. One with IRCTC. What is a new feature in IRCTC?
ENF probability.
Yeah, confirmation probability. Yeah. And in Redbus, like we have a new feature called rescheduling ticket, right? And like the recent change is dark mode, this dark mode,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right. Next, the next scenario is increasing number of users are adding new users, right? I'll give some, best example for this, right? Increasing number of users are adding new users, right? You might have heard recently, I mean, not recently, but like in 2019, I guess, uh, uh, everyone know Kotak Mahindra Bank, right?
Yes.
So assume that Kotak Mahindra Bank has some 5 lakh users, right? 5 lakh net banking users, right? Kotak Mahindra Bank, assume that just a rough number I'm saying. So assume that it has some I'll take it will be more than that, some 20 lakh net banking users, right? Okay. Uh, Kotak.com, right? Kotak.com is the Kotak Mahindra Bank website, right? Now, in 2019 or so, Kotak Mahindra Bank acquired ING Vaishya Bank, right? Is it ING Vaishya Bank,
Yeah. Yes.
right? And before this acquisition, ING Vaishya Bank users used to use their website ingvaishya.com or something, right? And let's assume that ING Vaishya Bank has some 5 lakh users, right? Now, after acquisition, all these ING Vaishya Bank users will start using this Kotak.com, right?
Yes.
After post acquisition,
Yeah.
right? Post acquisition and merger, right? Once this ING Vaishya Bank merger is completed with Kotak, all these 5 lakh users also will be using this, Kotak.com, right?
Yeah.
So there is new set of users, right? Now with apart from this previous 20 lakhs, right? So there are 5 lakh more users who got added to this application, right? So now again, Kotak should do performance testing for their application to test whether their application supports 25 lakh users or not, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
They have to migrate all the user database to this, their database, right? And they have to do performance testing for their application, right?
Yeah.
So that is the best example for this increasing number of users or adding new users. Agree?
Yeah.
Right? And the next important factor for doing performance testing is a major software upgrade like database or OS migration, right? Assume that there is some OS migration, means the a, a web application, the client want to do migrate the operating system for their that is being used by their application. Assume that they are upgrading from Windows 8 to Windows 10, right? So there is a OS migration, that is called OS migration, operating system migration. Or they want to upgrade the database from Oracle to some 10C to 11C, right? Oracle 10 to 11, right?
Yeah.
I think 13 is the latest version of Oracle. you observe here, like Oracle 10, 11G, right? So G stands for grid computing. So, this particular version supports grid computing, right? Oh, I think it is 19. 19C is the latest version, seems like. Okay. 12C stands for, the C stands for cloud. Okay. And this 11 stands for, 11G stands for grid computing. Okay. Yeah. So they, like there is some database upgrade or OS migration, right? Again, like, once they before migrating to the database in production, obviously, like they have to do performance testing in test environment, right? We already discussed this. Performance testing will be done in test environment, or there is some other name that I have given. That is popularly used, right? Performance testing is done in the environment in which performance testing is done is called
Engineering.
test environment or engineering environment, right? So before before upgrading it in production, what they do is like first they upgrade in test environment, do their performance testing, and then once the testing is successful, right, then they will do it in production. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
they will roll out the changes in production. Is it clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right? So this is major software upgrade like database or OS migration, right? Or whenever there is an hardware upgrade also, right? Whenever they are upgrading the hardware also, they do performance testing for even an already existing application. Is it clear?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, any queries like Girish or Pavan?
No, sir.
Okay. Those who joined from today, Renuka, Sharmila, Raviteja, any queries over here?
No, sir.
Right? You understood?
No, sir.
For an already existing application also, why do we need these explain like why do we need to do performance testing? Clear? Ravi, is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So now let's understand like for a newly built application, assume that an application is newly developed, right? And why do we need to do performance testing for a newly built application, right? So assess readiness of to production, right? Means assess readiness of production environment and determine capacity of existing systems. Means if like assume that an application is newly developed, right? And like before pushing it into production, before making it go live, right? We have to do performance testing to determine how good is the application to go into production before releasing that application to production environment. I think everyone is clear what is meant by production environment. Production environment means the environment which will be used by real-time users, right? Yes, we are using when I say production environment, we are using many production environments like Redbus we are using, or SBI online SBI.com. These are all production environments because we are using it, right? We are as an user, as a customer, we are using all those applications. That is production environment. Or Facebook.com or Gmail.com. These are all called production environments. Production environments means which are being used by real world users. Clear?
Yes.
Right? So to determine how good is the application to go into production, right? Right? That is one reason. And to determine capacity of the existing systems. Capacity of the existing system means how many users can they support, right? How many users can a newly built application can support? To test that, we have to do performance testing. Clear? Yesterday I gave some numbers. IRCTC will be used by 5 to 7 lakh or 8 lakh users, right? Normally there will be 5 to 8 lakh users on IRCTC, and 18 to 20 lakh tickets used to be booked per day before the, of course, before this lockdown, right? 18 to 20 lakh tickets will be booked per day. Now, before some IRCTC kind of application is going live, right? First they have to determine, right, like what is the capacity of that application, right? So for that we do performance testing, and actually performance testing team should give sign off to the any new build, right? Performance testing team should determine, like whether an application should go into production or not, right? So that is the reason performance test engineers are paid compensation equal to developers, right? I, in one of the demo sessions I explained, like the compensation, right? How much performance test engineers are paid. I already, in one of the previous session I explained, right? Product based companies pay, like number of years into 4 lakhs kind of packages. Means for 3 years experience they will pay up to 12 lakhs per annum. Okay, so which is equal, more or less equal to developers. The reason is it's performance testing team who has to decide whether a code should go into production or not. Clear? Right? And next, creating benchmark for future systems, right? So I'll explain this, what is benchmark and baseline later on, right? And compare multiple platforms. When I say compare multiple platforms, so suppose client want to decide like which OS they have to use for their production, which operating system they have to use for production, right? Or which hardware they have to use for production, right? What hardware they have to use for production, whether they have to go for Intel processors or AMD processors, that kind of, right? So to compare multiple platforms also they do performance testing on all platforms they want to compare, right? And compare performance characteristics with different system configurations. Compare performance characteristics. See, when I say performance characteristics, right, characteristics, the previous slide, that is the reason I explained here, like these are the performance characteristics of an important performance characteristics of an application, right? Response time, hits per second, throughput, disk IOPS. So that is the reason I explained this. I included this here. So we will discuss this in detail, what is hits per second, what is throughput and all, in the further sessions. Okay, for now remember that when I say performance characteristics, so like these are the performance characteristics of any application. Okay, so compare performance characteristics with different system configurations. We will revisit all these terms, like after once the scripting is completed, like we will revisit all these terms. Okay, right? So few few scenarios you can understand very well, but like we will revisit, like whatever you can't understand, you don't have a clear idea, like we will revisit all this, right? The next one is validate any application against its performance criteria, right? And uncover what components of an application suffer poor performance and under what conditions. To uncover what components of an application suffer poor performance and under what conditions, right? And you got it right, what components of an application. So for that I need to explain what will be the different components of a web application, right? I will explain somewhere here what are the components of a web application. So basically these are the components of a web application. There will be something called web server, application server, database server, and another component called load balancer. So like I will explain this, like what is the purpose of web server, application server, database server in detail when we come to this slide, right? So but for now remember that. So another major reason for doing performance testing is to find out what component of an application suffer poor performance and under what conditions, right? And find any performance bottlenecks. Many a times you might have seen, right, page can't be displayed, or 500 internal server error and so on, right? When you're accessing some applications, you might have seen some, performance issues, right? So let me show you. I have taken some screenshots. Okay. So for instance, like I think in last December, HDFC Bank website was down for 2 to 3 days. Intermittently, it used to work. Did you remember? Any one of you faced that issue? I don't have that particular screenshot. So I remember that, like HDFC Bank website was down for, in 2019 December, right? I remember this very well. So I had to do some transaction urgently, right? And like HDFC Bank website was down for like around 2 to 3 days. That is the reason I remember it very well. In December 2019, right? It was restored after 3 days. Both HDFC net banking and apps also, mobile apps also, right? They're restored after 3 days, right? As you can see here. See, after being affected for 3 days due to a technical glitch, HDFC banks, net banking and app services have now been operational something, right? So, but like 3 days, they're continuously for 3 days, they're both their net banking and mobile apps stopped working, right? You got it right. So if there are some technical glitches, there are some performance issues at their end, or you might have seen like during big billion sale, like like in one of the big billion sale, like Flipkart crashed, right? Flipkart stopped working, right? So these are called like these are caused because of some performance bottlenecks in the application, because of some performance bottlenecks or performance issues in those applications, right? So to find out if there are any such performance bottlenecks, we do performance testing, even though it is a newly built application, right? So this is required for both a newly built application and also for an already existing application. We have to do performance testing to find any performance bottlenecks, no matter whether it is a newly built application or an already existing application. Is it clear? Yes, please let me know if you are, not able to follow anything, right? The last one is support system tuning. So I'll explain what is this system tuning, but this is another major reason for doing performance testing. Okay. So we will revisit these terms, like, once you do some load test, then you will understand like how do we identify performance bottlenecks and what is system tuning, right? So once we do some performance testing, then we will understand, but in a better way, like, what are all these concepts. But I think I gave a overview of like why do we need to do performance testing. Guys, able to hear me?
Yes, yes.
Right? So you got an overview, right? Like why do we need to do performance testing? Very important interview question, right? Very important FAQ for interview.
Yeah.
Why do we need to do performance testing for a already existing system and for a newly built application? Or they may ask like, they may not also, they may not mention also like for an already existing and for a newly built one. They may ask like this: why do we need to do performance testing? What is the importance of performance testing? Right? So you can explain both these, you can categorize this into two types, like for already existing applications and a newly built application. And you can explain these with examples that I have given. Remember, this would be, if in an interview, this would be one of the top 5 questions. And if you get a positive impression, if you explain in a proper way, like that will build a first impression, very good first impression. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So I think I'll stop it here. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. So I'll leave for like we'll have some. If you have any questions, we can discuss. I'm stopping the recording.